bug. And I joined IAS, so I moved from corporate to IAS. And let me not dwell too much on what my journey has been, but what a general journey of IAS officer in the context of public policy making is. I think that would be slightly more relevant. Wherever relevant, I would tell about my experience also. But let me just focus on in general structure. You are all aware, but let me just focus on one or two key issues. When we talk about public policy in terms of public policy making, in terms of a professional analyzing public policy problems, going through the rigors of analysis, going through consultations, and coming up with apt solutions, uh, that is one aspect of, let's say, I will talk about civil services or specifically IAS because that is something which I know better. But when you join service as an IAS officer, or even let's say IPS officer or customs, central excise, or other services, basically first 10, 12 years are devoted to field work. So you're not doing any public policy work as such. You are implementing programs, you are solving problems, you are managing crisis, you are dealing with public host of them. So it's not, you don't even stop and think whether this policy is worthwhile or not worthwhile because you are supposed to implement the policy as given to you either by your government or central government and implement it with full vigor. Oh, yes, it is very exciting. No doubt about that. The field itself is very challenging. There's lots of scope for autonomy and innovation there. And I'm very happy to note what current generation of officers are doing in the field. They're applying all their knowledge of technology and other new aspects and creating new programs, implementing programs better. We all also tried with limited resources at our disposal in 1980s and early 90s. But first 10, 15 years in most of the services, especially IAS, are devoted to field. You don't do any policy. Actually, you don't do any policy. Okay, once in a while you can get a posting in the secretariat or some such department, but that is at a very junior level, and you basically again you are supporting your senior people. So that is one critical thing. When you move to senior positions, maybe after 15, 20 years as secretary to government in state or as joint secretary in central government, that is the point when actually you start thinking about policy because then that is your responsibility, key responsibility. In fact, the joint secretary level is the cutting edge in central government. And that is when you start, applying whatever you know about the field and coming up with solutions to problems which are posed to you in a particular department. For example, I was in fertilizer, I was in DOPT, or later on in renewable energy. So that is the point when you have start applying whatever you know. But we should also be one thing which is very clear. So as you move up from joint secretary to additional and ultimately secretary, when you're in charge of a department and you're reporting to the minister and you are in charge for the entire everything what is happening in the department, actually a bureaucrat's time, particularly at the senior levels, 80% time is you are doing routine work. It's very only 20% time that you do actually policy work. And there also, because you have so many responsibilities and requirements of meeting in terms of the meetings, in terms of meeting stakeholders, in terms of responding to political queries, in terms of responding to parliamentary questions, parliamentary committees, you actually don't devote much time in policy making at that level. Also, you approve, you give your inputs, you are advised by people, but you yourself, in terms of sitting down and doing the rigors of policy making, I doubt very much if somebody has adequate time for that. So it is very strange that when we think of policy making, we think of top bureaucrats making policies or even bureaucrats making policies. Actually, most of that many a times the amount of time that is available at the senior most level is very limited for policy making because routine is so overpowering and routine is normally so urgent that urgent things take precedence. So that is what the scenario of policy making is within service. And I'm talking about IAS. In terms of other services, for example, if I talk about police, scope is even much more limited because what happens is the policing role is very different. It is even at the senior most level, the role is it replicates what you were doing at junior level. Role doesn't change fundamentally unless you move to secretariat for some time, and unless you move to some such positions, I in other services like income tax, customs, yes, you advise through your directorates, like whether it's CBDT or CBEC, because most of the revenue loss changes are routed through CBDT, and then you get some hang of it, and you have a chance to effect changes. So in government, when we say I want to bring change and something, mostly it happens at the ground level. And at the ground level, you don't do policy, you do program implementation. And there you improve things, there you do better things. Of course, minor corrections you can make at your level, but that degree of autonomy is not so much that you can change fundamental things. So if approach to, let's say, poverty alleviation is there, Manrega will, you can't introduce a scheme like Manrega at the lower level. You have to implement it. So it has its own challenges, excitement, kicks you get out of that, but not policy. So on the other hand, when we talk about policy as a profession, policy as a discipline, when we talk about, being analytical about collecting data, analyzing data, looking at problems and coming up with worthwhile solutions, and, all these, the entire, go through the gamut of steps to arrive at good policy solutions. The space which is outside government sometimes provides better opportunity to apply the professional knowledge, not within government. Because if you are, for example, if you're working in a consultancy, for example, and nowadays it has become a trend that most of the ministries and departments, at least in government of India, are being supported by consultants. So they will pose you a problem. It's your task to go and collect data. It is your task to go and analyze, come up with solutions, and then you, of course, submit it, which will be approved. So maybe you will not be seen as the final author when policy is finally launched or created. Maybe credit will go to the other levels, but you will determine what goes inside the policy. So you have the chance, even at a very young age, maybe 5, 6, 7 years of seniority, to design policies, whether it's working in a consultancy or working in a think tank, working in, let's say, in a civil society organization where you can give inputs and advocate for policies, or even in corporates, where in public affairs department of corporates, you take the case of corporate and, produce white papers, convince and advocate. So, I mean, these are the roles which are policy professionals uh, uh, play in various different sets of organizations. And this requirement is going up. I mean, the way we are developing and the way we are moving on, requirement for public policy professionals is growing up outside government. So you can say it's paradoxical, but I know, having experienced it, that this is the reality, that good policy work can be done outside government. But what do you miss as compared to UPSC, through UPSC civil services career? Of course, you miss the excitement of being in the field. And for me, I mean, that is the USP of services. It's USP of services is not secretariat jobs. That can be done. It's the field which gives you the kick. So that is something, because all of you who have been either preparing for or want to prepare for UPSC civil services route have one thing. I mean, you all have various options available to you in terms of your careers. But I'm sure you have one thing, which is, keeping this fire burning inside you. Because unless there's a fire burning inside you, you don't prepare for UPSC. You do something meaningful. We all search for meaning in our lives, and we think that we will do something good. We will get prestige in the process. We will get some power in the process. We will get some reward in the process. But basically, motivation is, I want to do something different, bring a change, make a difference. So you can make a difference even outside. But yeah, the excitement of doing it on the field is more. So that is something which is, I would say, which will be missing in a pure public policy professional career outside government. But in terms of application, in terms of intellectual contribution, in terms of, coming up with bright solutions, looking at solving problems which facing the country, no less. Outside contribution, in fact, is going to become even more and more over a period of time, because complexity is increasing. And there I would like to say one more thing. Sagar, have I taken more time than
No,
you?
no, I think it's great, sir. It's a good introduction. Please, please.
Okay, okay. one more thing, which is, I've been thinking about it since yesterday when Sagar said I must participate. I've been teaching at ISPP, so I do meet with youngsters, and this time I taught a PTM course also, so I know the motivations of very young people also. One thing is there, and I don't know how to, incorporate it uh, as complexity increases, public as complexity of governance increases, it will increase, and now with AI and all, things will become even more complex. And intersectoral coordination, health policy requires that you understand sanitation also, you require poverty issues also. This you have to get a very broad understanding, but at the same time, I think for a policy professional, people would start expecting you to know something special about a particular sector. For example, when I was Secretary Renewable Energy, people who were advising me from outside government had some knowledge of extra knowledge of that sector of energy. That you have to keep in mind. I mean, you can't just be a public policy saying that, I know general public policy. No, that is the weakness of the IAS currently, that most of us don't have specialized in a particular sector, and that is why we have to rely. So when you are coming from outside, you'll have to bring that expertise. How do you incorporate that? How do you develop that alongside a public policy career? That is that is something that will determine whether you are going to be a very good professional or an average professional. So getting expertise, for example, if you suppose health ministry asks you to do something, if you don't know health as a subject, I think your input would be less valued. So that is something which we have to keep in mind, that how do I keep developing an expertise? The next 4 or 5 years I worked in sector and then developed it. And then you will be recognized as a professional in that field. It requires some time to spend. Of course, in the meanwhile, if it's possible through some, sabbatical or something while working in a organization to do some field, that'll be icing on the cake. So that is how a good public policy career can be structured and emerge outside government. Now, gradually, one more thing which you are all aware, but let me just add that even government is opening up. So, with this lateral entry route of entering the government services at the policy making level, director and joint secretary level, it is on hold right now because of certain issues about reservations. But otherwise, I think at least this government is very keen on expanding the intake of outsiders, those who are not regular career civil servants, into policy making roles. And there, that expertise would be valued tremendously. So I think this is going to expand. And there is no question in my mind, doubt in my mind, that over a period of time, those opportunities will only expand. Second expansion is taking place in corporates. I think most of the corporates are strengthening their public affairs department. And that is why they would also need some sectors. So if you want to be a public affairs department of, for example, Google or Amazon or whatever, then you have to know that sector well. How does e-commerce work, and issues of privacy, issues of AI. So that expertise would be required. And I'm sure you can pick it up over as you progress. So apart from the fact that outside civil services, these opportunities in various sectors do provide you to do some very meaningful work in the area of public policy. In fact, more than sometimes those who are within government, it is also possible for short-term periods to go to government, work there, and then come back. I think this kind of model may emerge more prominently in times to come. So I think I'll stop at this point, and then maybe I will ask Sagar to take it forward. And I'm of course I'm available and to further add something later.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. That was very good to have an introduction that gave everybody an idea of how public policy and UPSC are similar, different, what are the kind of motivations that are involved. But I would want to add another question before we sort of
Yeah,
move to other
sure.
panelists at this time, because you talked about how as an IAS officer you do more work in the field. But what is the first time you really felt that impact of public policy in your work?
Yeah, and for me personally, I mean, I was in the field my field was not really only districts. Because of my background at that time, IM background was not very usual, so I was posted to PSUs more often than not. So I worked in PSUs, which is also field in a sense. I was in development banking, and then I was MD of I was general manager of UP State Road Transport Corporation for 3 years. Then I was MD of a Sugar Federation unit for 2 years. So basically, I did substantial part of field. So there was no policy there. Let me say, we were directed by the policy made by government, but we were implementing. For me personally, when I became secretary of the UP Electricity Regulatory Commission, which had just been set up, and we were drafting new regulations because it had just been set up. So we didn't have, for example, what is called distribution code. How should a franchisee, how should a distribution company relate to its consumers? And we wrote it. And that is something that gave us lots of satisfaction. How can we streamline processes for getting connection, for meter reading, for problems? So all these things were part of the distribution code. That is part of policy. How we would deal with various situations in the future. Of course, it must have undergone several revisions by now, but I contributed to the first draft which we made. Similar regulations were being made. So regulators today make substantial part of policy actually. They have been given powers under the Act to make these regulations, which have the force of law. It is not made by government department. So whether electricity or telecom or insurance, regulators are making these policies. And these are not policy, but these are policies which affect everyone. So bigger policies, maybe import policies or trade policy or poverty, they are still done by the regular departments. But so for me personally, and then I moved to secretary PWD, Public Works Department in UP, and we made policy regarding maintenance of roads, policy regarding upgradation of roads and bridges, whatever. So my exposure to policy started from there. But again, as I said, uh, in government, and I'm talking about 2002, so 2002, 3, very 20 years back, there was much less professionalism in making policies. It was more like just putting it all together in terms of writing options, in terms of evaluating. Well, whatever a good policy analyst does, I think that was largely missing. But yes, that was my first exposure. Of course, subsequently in several jobs I did in health. I worked in Department for International Development UK when I worked with the MP government. And so we drafted policy, we drafted programs, got it approved, implemented. So it was a mix, but it was more like an advisory role because you are an advisor, so you do things. So since then, in every job there will be some policy component because you are at that level where you have to take stance, you have to make decisions, and you have to correct things. So you have to address problems which are being faced. They come to you, and then you take a decision. So after that, yeah, almost every job will have some. But first 15 or maybe 20 years, no, very little.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. I think, yeah, that's just a long sort of a journey that you have had,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. I have a
part of
long
the
and varied journey. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I'll also take some time to sort of focus on the two other panelists we have with us. One of them is Prakyat and the other is Shaji. Both of them are alumni from TDV, and they've also had this whole sort of an aspiration of UPSC at one point of time in their careers, and then they moved. I know Prakyat very well. I remember was sort of studying at at one of the schools in and preparing parallelly for UPSC. But Prakyat, would you want to take a moment to talk about how did you find about public policy and what made you just say that, okay, well, I will not prepare for UPSC, but I will want to sort of look at you as public policy as one route?
Thank you, Sagar. I think first of all, thank you, Rajiv sir, for giving such a wonderful introduction for the field of public policy, and you have touched upon almost all the points. Regarding my journey, I think after preparing for civil services for a while and after giving 3 attempts, I decided to get into some master's program. So I got into TIS. And meanwhile, when I was studying there, I was not getting that kind of satisfaction because somewhere I felt that I am losing that passion of working for the government or working in the government. So at that time, I was in Delhi, and one of my friend who was preparing along with me was at ISPP. So he somehow became my senior at ISPP. So he introduced me to ISPP, and he told me only one thing that really attracted me towards ISPP was, you know what bureaucrats are teaching here. And for aspirants like me, that is enough selling. That statement is enough for selling the course to me. That bureaucrats are teaching here. So I came down to ISPP and I met Sagar, and we had a very good conversation regarding uh, sometimes taking that leap of faith in yourself as well as your career. And if you're not satisfied with whatever you're doing right now, then in the longer run it won't work out. So I took that leap of faith. Public policy for me was a chance to work around the government, work with the government, or to just say work as close as possible to the government. And I didn't know anything about public policy at that moment. But after that, I dropped from TIS, and I'm a dropout from TIS. And then I came back to Delhi. I started my journey towards public policy, started interning with a political party. From that, I never looked back. I worked with member of parliaments, member of legislative assembly, think tanks, civil societies. Then I also interned with Godrej Industries. That was my first introduction towards corporate affairs, and I really loved that experience. For a while, I was also working with EY India, but I think my interest that lied towards public affairs made me made me join an organization that is VK. It's a Gurgaon-based organization. It's in policy advisory and research organization where majorly we are trying to help the corporates to navigate this complex policy world of India as well as the globe. So that's really exciting for me. And as Sir said, that more and more opportunities coming into corporate. So that is where I want to make my career now.
That's interesting. From the government to corporates, and do you get
Yeah.
to still sort of feel the satisfaction and the change that you wanted to make in your current role?
Absolutely. I think, Sagar, the first thing that I realized during the whole of my transition journey was the mistake that most of the aspirants are doing and I was also doing was not setting the expectation right. Because the problem is that when we are preparing for civil services, we are seeing ourselves at a certain level. We are always imagining ourselves being a district magistrate, having a huge scope of change, having a maybe authority of bringing the change and all. But when you are not a part of the system directly, if you are associated by the system, with the system in certain way, then you have to set your expectation right. And whatever work you are doing, you have to, see, okay, in a larger run, it is making a bigger change, but maybe you are not contributing to the whole of the change, but you are a part of the change. If you do that, I think the magic works, and you are really satisfied with whatever you are doing. For example, this realization happened with me when I was interning with Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. There's a tulip program where what the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs is doing, they are giving a chance to the urban local bodies to connect with the college going students for an internship, for 2 months of internship. It is not for the earlier it was not for the monetary purposes, it was just for the giving them the exposure of the government. And I was working in the project management unit of the program. There I was supposed to do the grievance redressal. So one day I had a query with one of the ULBs of Bihar, and that was one of the district that I never heard of. So it was one of the new district or new thing for me. Okay, this district lies somewhere in Bihar, and these are the ULBs coming up. And those people were telling me this is the thing that we are getting so much of registration for this internship, and the students are eager to get the exposure of the government. And I think that was a realization that if I'm able to solve this issue for that ULB, so I am able to connect the youth of Bihar of a certain ULB to the government directly, giving them that exposure, giving them a new scope of learning, towards urbanization, towards infrastructure, towards sanitation. So maybe I was just interning there, but I saw my work as crucial as somebody who is sitting in Bihar, or maybe who is the commissioner of Bihar, because I'm just helping out people there, right? So that is how you have to, set your expectations right in whichever role you are sitting. And then I think, as you said, that if I'm able to contribute to the growth, absolutely I am. Right now, I'm helping corporates and industry. And before this, again, being a typical aspirant, we usually try to neglect the contribution of industries. And in India, because of our history as well, we have never seen given enough attention to industries, even not given enough, I would say, importance to industries. But if you see industries, if you this within this government, what I'm trying to see is, if you are able to help the industries, MSMEs grow, ultimately the India will grow, right? And that is that vision that I want to contribute to now. Like how we can solve the issues of the industries, how we can help them to navigate this complex policies ecosystem. And I never realized how complex it is. hats off to the bureaucracy, how they're handling this country, because it is really complex and such a tensed atmosphere it is, because they're sitting on such hard decisions. Because I was working with one of the joint secretaries and I was seeing him taking decisions of making 1500 crores maybe in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and he has to take it. Such under such pressure, he was having this cool chill temper, and he's making decision worth 1500 crore. So it's just amazing how the system works and how each and every part of the ecosystem contributes and maybe contributes towards the vision of India.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. In fact, I hope you've had more fulfillment as you move towards the public policy journey, and you've also had a chance to look at it from a different lens. But Shaji is also with us, and maybe I'll take a moment to, in fact, ask him how he has sort of found about public policy, and how did he really feel this journey of public policy has been different as well as similar from what he was looking at as UPSC as an option.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Shahaji Kadam. I'm from Maharashtra, Nanded. I'm in fact ISPB's first from first batch of ISPBs. So the first 10 people who registered for ISPB, I might be in those people. So in 2019. So the start of applying or looking after public PG in public policy was trigger was a failure of UPSC mains in 2018. ISPP was starting at that time, and that was a like uh, right moment and right time and right place for me to apply for ISPP. So that's when I got in. I was looking for similar uh, degrees or post graduation where I can use my UPSC knowledge in public policy. So when I look at the ISPP syllabus and the chapters and the people who are teaching there, uh, I had a sociology as optional, and Dipankar Gupta was teaching yeah, sociology of India in SPP at that time in the first batch. He's not teaching right now, I guess. That was like people who are studying sociology for UPSC. They know what it means to be under Dipankar Gupta and Sanjay Baru and Shamika Ravi and all these people who used to just read about their quote them in UPSC exam mains paper and all. And these people are teaching in ISPB. So that was fascinating thing for me. So my journey, I started from there. I gave 3 UPSC attempts, 2 mains, and then I decided at the age of 25 not to give more attempts. And I'm sorry to say, but to waste my youth in the vicious cycle of UPSC and go towards something more productive. So I joined ISPP, and then ISPP gave me opportunities like to work with NSDC and work on other projects, more exposures, conferences. It's in the heart of Delhi as well. So we have a lot of public policy related conference. At that point of time, it was uh, coming from a place like Marathwada and staying in Maharashtra and that sort of like down south, there is not much of public policy things. But it's in Delhi that helped me a lot to make new connections, networks, and learn about how public policy is being made and in what direction India is going. Then I joined Andhra Pradesh government. There I worked with ASG on research programs, directly working on the ground, going on the ground, doing like finding out where the government is lacking, where are the loopholes in policies. I was working in JSW's department. That department uh, is work for the delivering of government services and schemes. That is unique in India. The onus of delivering services and schemes is on the government. So I was going to the homes and asking people, going to their secretaries and talking to the people. Even though I faced a lot of language barrier, but everyone can understand where are the problems and all. So that was my job in Andhra Pradesh. But again, when I left UPSC, I realized one thing. When I left UPSC, in my heart, I'm a political animal. So to go in politics, I need something in my hand, like get an expertise. Politics is not, it's not 1970s or 80s or 90s politics. It is becoming more and more professional. Politicians are learned and they are very good with public policy. They are good with their own fields like lawyers and uh, public policy as well. So that's why I wanted a degree. I wanted expertise on public policy to go in political direction. So then I joined a political consultancy firm. Now I'm working with the India's biggest political party, which is in the ruling political party. So I work in their public policy department, prepare manifestos. So uh, as Raju sir was saying, uh, I write like me and my team wrote manifestos for Maharashtra and Odisha. So there are the key is like if you're writing some promise in political manifesto, that manifesto you, after the government comes to the power, you can see that manifesto is getting implemented. Like I'll give you an example. We were sitting and we were thinking the ministerial leave, in corporate world in India, female get 1 day, 2 day ministerial leave, but in government they never get those kind of leaves. So we just put it in Odisha manifesto that in first month of coming to the power, BJP government in Odisha, they implemented their policies. There are so many policies like that which you wrote in manifestos. Like people in India don't take that manifesto that seriously, but political party do. Like at least the Bharatiya Janata Party does take their manifesto seriously. Add their backroom with their backroom channels. So the party uh, sort of they overlook where these policies are getting implemented are the state governments and the central governments implementing their promises. So this is my journey, thought of moving to political direction. That's why I chose public policy over UPSC, and I am doing what I wanted to do through UPSC. I'm doing through political channels.
That's so great to hear. In fact, two very different journeys, one from Prakyat and one from Shaji, who are looking at policy in very different ways and contributing to the policy landscape in two different ways. That's great to hear. But I think, Shaji, we were also able to con you because you're the part of the first batch. We were able to sort of con you to be a part of ISPP, and we hope that your last 5 years post graduating have been satisfying enough in terms of your professional goals, in terms of how you see your sort of acceptance towards what your education is in the policy landscape. But I'll move the questions back to Rajiv sir. And I would really want to ask him at this point of time and probably get to know from him about the whole idea. Because you've known the program, sir, you've also known the PDM program at ISPP, you've also known the curriculum at ISPP, and you've also seen the kind of education that is sort of required to become a good administrator in the civil services. And in fact, it's great to share at this point of time that a few of our graduates have also appeared for gone to the final rounds and in fact even qualified their civil services exam. So that's something which we've in fact heard from people in the past that have said who have said that actually if you do an ISPP course before applying for civil service is better because then your exposure is much more. So Rajiv, so would you want to talk about that and maybe share a bit more of how you see the ISPP curriculum and the education in correlation with what the civil services require?
Yeah, but let me pick on the last point that you mentioned first, in terms of public policy as a subject. Even before it, right, thinking of writing the UPSC exam. I think public policy education in our country, I would say, is still in its infancy. It's not fully developed. We have had public administration departments in most of the universities for long, and that was Ghiza Peta Public Administration, just some kind of version of a management course, very reduced kind of version of how government is structured, those Weberian bureaucracy, and that's it. But public policy, when we talk about public policy, there is lots of economics, there is lots of politics, there is lots of law, there is lots of constitution, and there is lots of sociology, what Shaji mentioned, lots of politics, political economy as a subject. You have to get a grasp of all these things, which is not just public administration. Public administration is one part of public policy, how government is structured, how decisions are made in government, and what are constraints, and how bureaucracies don't function very well. Basically, those are the things that we are. I think there is need, and maybe there is an awakening also, that gradually public policy courses should become very important courses within universities, where people can take it for graduation rather than just as a postgraduate course. They get a wider perspective, because if you do this public policy course over 3 years, you can do much more. You can be a very good, you can pick up lots on data analysis, on evidence-based decision making, on management aspects of public policy, the public management subjects, and of course this subjects of constitution, law, etc., etc. And then you can decide to write civil services, you can go and cooperate. That is the ideal situation, which is not pertaining just now. This is why I said that these things have to change. Hopefully they will change. ISPP also, we are thinking of doing some work on this area as to how to, um, revise the entire thinking about public policy education, not just a 1 year brief course, but it's a wide, should be a comprehensive graduate course. So that is one thing. As far as the ISPP is concerned, yeah, ISPP has well thought out its role in public policy space. There is lots of emphasis on the aspects of economics, the basic economics, microeconomics, macroeconomics, and that is something which is insisted on. I taught a course on data analysis in terms of looking at data, how to make sense of data, and how to use data techniques for taking policy decisions. There is lots of input on law and constitution, law and economics, because that is a critical part. Then sociology, reduced, I suppose, but I think that is something that an area which needs more strengthening. Politics, and I think best part apart from these courses, I mean, there are seminars on subject specific or sector specific, like education, health, environment, etc. Experts come in, and therefore half credit or full credit courses on these subjects, which make you knowledgeable about these special, I think, 7 or 8 or 6 or 7 sectors. So that is also great. There are writing seminars, so you get writing and communication, oral communication. So you get, because communication, networking, they are very key components of a public policy professional's skill set, and those are all covered. But I think more than that, what I find the USP of ISPP is that because it is based in Delhi, I think every week you have 1 or 2 leading experts, whether politicians, whether bureaucrats, whether academicians, come and address the group. I think that is the key, because that is not possible in many other institutions, because Delhi has a surfeit of retired persons from all fields who have time and would love to talk to youngsters. So I think that is something which is great with ISPP education. I think that has been well integrated into the overall program. And I suppose I have not been sitting in those classes, but this collaboration with Harris School, Chicago, that also, the Harris lecture series, that is also very interesting, because experts from abroad, they come and take sessions on specific topics. I think that is also something which is very peculiar, very special about ISPP. So I think it's a very comprehensive course. The only problem is that time is too short, in my opinion. When we condense too much, I think students normally are left very they are exasperated, because it's too much to be done in very short time. There are assignments, there are practicum, they have to do a policy thing. Then some of them take up internships during this period. And now I think since last year or this year is going first year, the internship has become a part of the PDM curriculum itself. So they have to do 2 months of internship, which will be arranged by the institute. So I think those are very positive developments. But as I said, we are still, evolving public policy, not as just us, but all public policy schools. And this has to be taken to a higher pedestal in terms of making it an integral part of the university education, not just a special education, because it is very critical. And whether you ultimately decide to do whatever, even take up an engineering job, an understanding of how government functions, because government will always be there, and you will always interact with government in some way or the other. The more senior you become in whatever profession you have, it helps. So I think that from that perspective, it helps. And if you want to become just a specialized public policy professional, of course, you need more specialized training. So
That's great to hear. Prakhyat and Shaji, you would have come from very different backgrounds that I think were not as diverse in public policy. But would you want to talk about that, Shaji? And then maybe we talk to Prakhyat about what background you came from in terms of your education. Shaji, can you
they
hear
are
me?
muted. They are muted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shah.
So
Shaji.
I did my Bachelor of Science in Math, Computer Science, and Chemistry from SRTM Nanded. So in 2015, then I started preparing for UPSC civil services in Delhi. That was my background. I haven't did post graduation. Uh, uh, that ISP is my only higher study.
Okay. And Prakhyat, what about your background? I remember you were at TIS for some time, you
Yeah.
shared. Yeah.
I come from history background. I have done history honors from Delhi College of Arts and Commerce DU, and after that I started preparing for civil services. And as and when I started to build a postgraduate academic stream for myself, I decided to drop out and get into ISPP. So that plan got cancelled. So ISPP again is one of the only postgraduate program that I have done.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear.
But Sagar, I want to highlight one thing.
Certainly.
One of the most interesting thing that I have observed during my interaction with a lot of people in this journey and at TIS, I always felt that as most of the aspirants also say that we have wasted our time during preparing for civil services. I think that statement itself is absolutely wrong, because the kind of knowledge we hold, the kind of analytical mindset we hold, there are a lot of people who have expertise in specific subjects they do not hold. And I have seen that it is. I've seen that people who are in masters in second year in a specific subject, I was able to contribute to their discussions as much as they were doing it. And they were just so awestruck. They were asking me, "You're from which background?" I was like, "I've done history honors and I have career gap." They're like, "How do you know so much?" And I'm like, "I prepare for civil services." That's my answer for everything. Even today, when I interact with maybe my colleague or industry experts, or I'm able to make sense because I have my basics clear. Maybe I'm not an expert in specific domains, as Rajiv sir said that with time you have to develop an expertise, but at least our basics are clear. So we know, what are the schemes, how they are run, how to, get the fundamentals of things, how the government thinks. So we are being trained in that. I think that really helps. That really helps, and that really sets UPSC aspirant apart from other public policy professionals. That's my take.
That certainly is. In fact, I mean, every time I've met somebody who has prepared for the civil services, I've always found that their awareness about subjects is much more diverse. They're able to have a lateral thinking of correlating a lot of things because they have this is awareness allows for that freedom. And I think as a program, public policy also does that because the way we teach at ISPP also includes a very horizontal kind of a learning. So we actually talk about not just looking at a focused way of seeing, as Rajiv sir was saying, like a management way of seeing policy, but a policy way of seeing policy as how aware you are, how much do you know about things, etc. But I think before we conclude for the session for today, it's important to also sort of share with people about our program in terms of what we do at ISPP. The Indian School of Public Policy is an independent school, as I shared in the beginning of the session, and we offer various kind of programs in public policy. While we have our short-term programs and executive programs like Lokniti, Policy for Government Professionals, etc., we also have a one-year program, that's the PDM program, from which in fact Shaji and Prakhyat both have graduated. So that's a one-year program that focuses on public policy design and management that we see are all, I mean, in a very cohesive way, critical to be able to make contribute and sort of contribute in towards nation building. So the program is a one-year program, which includes a 2-month internship, as Rajiv sir talked about. I did miss that part when Rajiv sir said that we should actually have a focus and a dedicated knowledge about a stream. And at ISPP, we have something called as domains. So based on your interest and based on what works very well for you in consultation with professors, you can actually choose a domain in which you want to learn more. So a few domains that you want to specialize in, you learn more about them, and you sort of gather some additional knowledge as compared to the other members of the cohort about those domains. So that's somewhere we also encourage the idea of knowing specific things so that you can help enter into your careers. And as a one-year program, the program is a rigorous program designed for people to really sort of enter the field of public policy or probably go ahead in the field of the public policy if they are at that level in the program. It's just a good time to highlight that our applications for the program are in fact about to close for round one in the next close to 2 weeks. And the first round of examination is on 26th January. What day better than that? It's the 75th Republic Day, which is where we're hosting the round of selection for the 2025 cohort. So if you're looking forward to really building and contributing towards the nation in ways that are more open-ended, in ways that allow you to be more flexible in transitioning, there is an opportunity that you can look at. Pushpras has a question that I would want to certainly take up. He has asked about the idea of online mode courses. So there is a course called Lokniti, but our team will get in touch with you, Pushpraj, and share more about that. It's a program that's 4-month hybrid model where we spend most of the classes online, and then there's some amount of time that you spend in and look at for in terms of on campus and engage with other people. There are also questions about the PGP course. In fact, there's a student, Subhajit, who is a former student of TIS, and is planning to apply on the PGP course. And I'm sure this is a long query, but I can take this up before we move on the session. So we have a small cohort. We are a very small school, so we can only accommodate 75 students, and that's where we encourage students to apply early because the seats get filled very quickly. So that's where we recommend that you apply early in the program. And as we were saying, the exam is on 26th of January. There is no age limit. In fact, the cohort is very diverse. We have a cohort from the age of 22, 23 years old to kids or students. I would not say scholars, but we call them scholars at the campus, to an age of around 40 years old in the same cohort. So there's a lot of peer learning that happens. Work experience is generally preferred to have, but if you don't have, but you have a strong background, that also adds up. The admission cycle has started already. And as I was saying, we generally encourage people to apply in the early rounds because we have very limited seats. We are a very small school. So when you come to the campus, it's not like a huge student of the year campus, but it's a very small campus that is closely knit. But at the location, it's at the center of Delhi. That allows you to really access what Rajiv sir was saying in terms of policy professionals and bureaucrats. You can get an opportunity to access them. The process of admission is where we do an entrance exam. This is a very long query, but I'm sure this is addressing a lot of questions from Subhajit. Subhajit, thank you for the question. So, in terms of the duration of the admission cycle, we are talking about the process. Well, it's a two-stage entrance exam process where we go about in terms of having an entrance exam. And then after the entrance exam, there is a series of interactions, which is where you also get to meet really renowned policy professionals and really renowned sort of IAS officers who have served in the government. And they are the people who actually interview you and sort of interact with you to understand your motivation and whether the program that ISPP is offering is a good fit for you. So that's something which happens as a process. So you have an examination which is online and then followed by an interaction process. We do have a financial aid available for students who are sort of in need and have also achieved merit. And of course, there are loan facilities for students who are looking at that in the program. So we generally encourage applying early because financial aid is very limited. And if you apply early, the chances of getting financial aid are always higher because you are applying early. The financial aid kitty is also larger. So if you are looking forward to that kind of support, you should we would recommend you really apply at the earliest possible and appear for the first round of exam that is on 26th of January. And the total fees of the program, as a question has also come in from Subhajit, well, the program is actually an expensive program. And the reason for that, and I think one of our sort of very core team members, Luis Miranda, who's the chairman of the school, always says that while the program is expensive, it does not cover the cost of your education. The reason for that is that the school run the people and the resources and the kind of exposure and opportunities that you get in the program really incur a lot of the cost. And the program is at a total fee of around 8 lakh rupees in the total education. But students who sort of apply early also get the higher chance of getting a financial aid and the kind of support that they might need if they are in need. So that's, I think, I'm hoping the question consolidated, in fact, a lot that we wanted to cover about the program, and it has answered questions that people may have. But please feel free to write back to us. Pradeep Kumar also has a question, which is post this program, one may want to pursue PhD and become professor prospects. Well, I think in terms of technical part, I can always share that it is a 1 year program. So UGC to consider for PhD always talks about 2 years, but most sort of new age institutions that you would look at as universities like Ashoka, the ones that are really making a mark, are very open to the idea of recruiting their faculty. So that's where you get many more opportunities to look at. There is a question in terms of written exam question paper sample. Well, there is, yes, in case if you fill the application and move forward, Shubhajit, there is a mock exam paper that is sent to you, and you get a chance to prepare with that and get a reference of how the final exam is. That's the large part. I will probably request if there are any more questions, people, we really request that you write back to us. And we've got 4 minutes left for the session to end. But I would really request Rajiv sir to give a concluding note because I also know a lot of people in this meeting today who have joined in are at the verge of evaluating how should they really look at an opportunity that's in public policy or whether they should continue to prepare for the UPSC examinations, and how and where should they find that balance of taking a call and who is really a fit for either side. It'll be great if you could talk a little bit about that, sir.
That is going to be a very personal choice, but if I were advising as a parent, basically, I would say that yeah, UPSC aspiring for civil services through UPSC route is a good idea. It gives you a career and it gives you a chance to bring about some change. Not all services equally, that is also there. So that is why the chances of your getting into some of the key services are limited. But what I've been advising youngsters is that we should have a time frame. We should have maybe I'll commit 2 years, I'll commit 3. That's all. Because if you go up endlessly searching for UPSC kind of route, there is some it's a because numbers are so little out of lakhs who participate initially, then from mains, then mains to interview, that sometimes results could be just random. It's not no reflection on you. You have proven yourself in terms of your academic pursuits and your strength of your desire, but sometimes it so happens. So we should have a cutoff. So it's not that I would say that you give up on your desire to join government, but in case you are very keen on a public policy career, not necessarily on that kind of field and other things, then I think you can just decide to go do public policy as a subject. Because as I think Prakhyat or Shahji mentioned that, you know, there's quite an overlap between what you do in public policy education and what the civil services prelims and main requires actually. Because the kind of widespread knowledge that is required, part of that is substantially covered in the syllabus. So you can simultaneously, like as Sagar was mentioning, that even after doing the PDM course, people have sat for the exam and succeeded, because in fact you get a richer experience and richer interactions with people who have been in government. Maybe that also helps. So, and at the same time you have a good plan B which is available to you. So I think it's very critical that you should keep all these factors into mind. Of course, as I said, it will be a very personal and individual choice depending upon your circumstances, your family circumstances, and the kind of strength of your desire. But I would say that yes, you should try. And after some time, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. It doesn't reflect on your either competence or your personality, because there is some randomness in final result, because numbers are so little. Everybody is good. Out of those 1,000 people who are finally selected, anybody could have gone into top 100. It's just a few marks which separate here or there. So just accept that fact. And as a plan B, I think this is a very exceptionally good plan B in terms of pursuing your desire to be a social a change agent and working in the public policy space even without directly entering the government. Okay.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. So thank you so much for sharing that information with us. We have some more questions, but I think it's also time to conclude the webinar. But Lakshit, we have taken your question about the placements, and our team will get in touch with all the people who are looking forward and have questions about admissions at the school. So we can help answer those additionally after the call. Thank you so much, Prakhyat and Shaji, also for taking the time from your busy schedules and joining and sort of advising and sharing more about your journeys of how you have really found the way for public policy to help in your careers and move forward. Thank you, Rajiv sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Thank you everyone for
Thank you,
joining.
Prakash. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Bye, everyone. All the best.